My name is Lisa. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I go live right here on Facebook every Monday afternoon at 2:30 Mountain Time. I do have a fun project to share with you today. We're going to do something called a one-sheet wonder. And what that is I'm going to take one sheet of designer series paper. This time it's a 6x6, and I'm going to make a bunch of different cards out of it. I'm going to make 6 cards out of this one piece of designer series paper. And we're going to do that using this particular diagram. There are several different diagrams you can use. This is just the one I'm using today. And actually, if you place an order with me in September, I've actually got a tutorial that I will be giving away to all those who purchase with me with $30 or more that will actually have 24, you heard me, 24 one-sheet wonders in that tutorial. Full directions, cards, everything. It's really exciting. I got together with some other demos and we did that as a group, and I think you're going to love it. It's going to be a great alternative to my normal PDF, because normally if you place an order with me and you use the hostess code, I noticed last month not a single person used the hostess code, so I didn't have anybody to send the tutorial to. If you order $30 or more, you want to make sure you put in that hostess code, because that's what triggers me to send you guys the free PDF. So please remember to use the hostess code, unless, of course, you're getting your own hostess credit. In that case, you know, just shoot me an email and I'll send it over, because you want your own hostess credit, obviously. But I want to be able to send you guys free stuff. And every month, out of the realm of creativity, I send somebody a small package. I've been using the paper pumpkin boxes and sending somebody a pack of goodies every month for being active on my page, The Realm of Creativity. So make sure you are commenting, posting, and doing all that fun stuff over there. So I think that's enough housekeeping. Let's get to making some cards. How about that? Okay, so here's the 6 cards we're making today. And I'm actually using 2 different stamp sets just because that's where I got my sentiments from. And I've got a couple different punches, and I also used the Tasteful Labels dies. This is a great, very neutral die set that I use quite often, just because it's got some unique shapes, and they've also got the stitching, if you can see that. These ones stitch actually on the inside and the outside. So sometimes you can even take like a full layer and cut this out of the middle, and then you can lay it on top of something and have it show through to the back, and it'll still have the stitching around it, which is really fun. So if you don't have these dies, you might want to consider them. They are very useful. And then because I have out our Perfectly Plaid, I also have our Pine Tree Punch. That was offered as a bundle when it first came out. I've also got our Double Oval, and then our Pick a Banner. So these are the items I'm using. Oops. Oh, and of course the paper trimmer, obviously. So let me show you how I did this. To make the card bases, I'm going to need 3 sheets because it's 6 cards. I'm going to cut in half and score in half. We can do both on our trimmer by using the different blades. This one's going to score. I'm going to turn it to 5.5, and this one, the darker one's going to cut. And I find the best way to actually fold these so they're even is we're going to take that valley and we're going to turn it into a mountain. So I want the part that's bumped up on the inside, and I'm going to butt it up against the kind of ruler at the bottom. Make sure I'm good and even, and then I'm going to push back this way. I mean, we measured it and we should be right on that 4 1/4, but I find when I do it this way, I am pretty sure that I'm exactly on the edge and those are matching up. And then we'll want to come in and score with a bone folder, because when we just do this, they kind of pop open like that. But the idea is if you came in with the bone folder, they lay perfectly flat. So I know, kind of a silly little tool nobody thinks they need when they first get started, but it is very useful. Then I'm going to make my next layer. Now for each layer, we go down 1/4 of an inch. So since the card was 4 1/4 on the short side, this one's going to be 4. So I'm going to cut this at 4, and then I'm going to cut them at 5 1/4. Instead of 5 1/2, we're going down 1/4. to 5 1/4. So there's our cardstock. Now don't necessarily throw these away. They can come in handy. I have used them on the inside of a card. You know, once you put your Whisper White layer down, you can put this on the side. I've used them as a kind of a banner, you know, with designer series paper. There's lots of uses for them. But if you don't want to save little pieces, you can throw them away. But don't think you have to, because there are uses. Okay, now I'm going to take my 6 by 6 paper and I'm going to cut it according to my little chart here. So my first cut is actually going to be this long one that goes down the middle. And so that's going to be at the 4-inch. Okay, then I'm going to turn it and I'm going to cut it at the 4-inch because that's going to give me these two pieces. You follow me? Now I'm going to take this one and I'm going to lay it in the track and I'm going to put my points there and there. And then I'm going to bring my blade down in the center and go up and go down. I always start in the center when we're doing points because that stops me from smushing a corner. I find that if I'm trying to put something in there and I bring my blade down, there's a chance that will crush that, but starting in the middle, it does not. Okay, so we're back at our sheet, and what I have right now is I have this piece. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is do the one that goes all the way across. So this is going to be at 3 inches, and then we're going to do 1.5. So now we're going to cut this one down the middle this way to get these two pieces, and these two are going to go diagonal like we did the big square. Okay, so there we have all of our designer series paper cut. And I went ahead and I cut some labels out of those Tasteful Labels dies. Then I'm going to bring in my punches. And this is a 1-inch strip that I'm going to feed in here. And it's just like a titch off from fitting down in my little track, which bugs me a little. But if I flip it over, I can look from the back side to make sure that I look centered in there. And I think as long as I'm centered in there, I'm good. Now these two are going to line up on top of each other, and they're a little bit long, and that's fine, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp my sentiment, and then I'm just going to clip them off on the edge wherever they need to be. Then this is the double oval, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a colored background. And then let's do a skinny middle. And actually, normally I would cut this in a strip. Let me go ahead and do that because I don't like wasting that second one. So there's another sentiment. I've got these ones. This one here is 1 by 4, and this is 4 1/4 by 1 1/4. I cut some more 1 by 3s, and this is to coordinate with the designer series paper I cut out of my chart. Okay, because I do want to put some red on the edge of a couple of these. I just kind of assembly line did all of my sentiments and did all my cutting. Now the other thing, like I said, I wanted to do this stitched border die, and I've actually got this on 2 cards. So I'm going to go ahead and die cut those with you. Okay, so I've got plate 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to put this right down the middle, and you'll see why in a second. By cutting down the middle, I actually have 2 of these. So now I have 1 for each of my cards. That's kind of the beauty of that thing being stitched on both sides, is they look identical. Okay, now we get to start assembling. So if I come back in, let's see, let's start with this one. So I'm going to need a card base, this is Evening Evergreen. This one is Soft Succulent. I'm going to need 2 of my corners. And this one is stamped with the Peaceful Deer. Whenever I'm doing the sentiments, I tend to put them on a line so that I make sure that they're straight, and then I set my block down on top of it to pick it up, and also my block is straight on one of those. These others, it's not going to matter. And then I've got Evening Evergreen ink. Okay, now we're ready to put them together. The stamping for this card's done. Okay, and you can see on here how the edges are a little bit white, and that's just from cutting it. It's got a white core, not a big deal. But if those sorts of things bother you, one thing you could do is just use a little sponge dauber with some Evening Evergreen ink, and it'll just hide that. You wouldn't want to use too much because you don't want to make it obvious, but it can hide the white if you were using that side. And I'm using liquid glue on these for the wiggle room. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and pop this up on dimensionals. And I've seen some people like cover the back of one of these things. You know, every square inch has a dimensional, but I figure as long as my edges are held up, I'm good. I don't want to use up too much of my stuff. So there's card 1. For card 2, I'm going to do something very, very similar, only I'm turning it portrait orientation instead of landscape, just to be a little bit different. There's card number 2. And even that's just slightly different. Still a really cute card, just slightly different. This one is using the Merry Christmas from Peaceful Deer. What I've also done when I do these kind of banners is maybe wrap some linen twine or linen thread around the edge, because you're going to put it on with dimensionals, and so that will pop it up and hide those anyway. And then for my triangle in the corner, I want to adhere this first. And so what I'm going to do is put this onto my DSP, because then I want to cut it off. I don't want this excess. So it's going to be a little bit long, so what I'm going to want to do is go straight up from the corner. Well, let's put it on there. How about that? Okay, so since this is a top layer, I can wedge this into the corner. I don't need a border because they're the same size. And then it's going to be real easy to trim off from the back. Okay, these are glue dots, and I'm just going to put one on the end. And then I'm going to wrap it 3-4 times, 5, I don't know, whatever looks decent. And then I'm going to just put that end onto that same glue dot and snip off any excess. And so it's nothing fancy, it just gives it a little something. So maybe you like it with, maybe you like it without, just an option. But you know, you see when I put this down, there's a little bit of bulk at this end. But when we put it on the dimensionals, that's going to hide that, because my dimensionals are thicker than that little piece of twine. Okay, so again, I'm going to look from the back. The color differentiation helps me trim that off a whole lot easier. And then we're ready to put adhesive and put it on our base. So there's card number 2. Here's the other one I'm doing with a border. So I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, and then this one is another sentiment. See, I'm using all the different sentiments in these stamp sets, or several of them anyway, to give the card some variety without actually having to use a whole bunch of different stamp sets. And you can use the dimensionals underneath the red or between the two. So this one's popped from the bottom, so the dimensionals are under the red one. Here I can put them under the ivory, or this very vanilla. And then we can put this direct to the card. Okay, so again, same kind of idea, just slightly different. I don't know if you like one better than the other or not, but there's 2 different ways to put that on. Now we're down to this one. Okay, we know from our sheet that the piece we're working with is 4 by 2. So I want my red to be 4 1/4 by 2 1/4. So that's going to give us the same border that we have on all our other stuff. And then this sentiment is out of the Perfectly Plaid. So it was this sentiment right here. There's another card. Now we just have the one left. That went kind of fast, didn't it? Now for this one, what I'm going to want to do is adhere these on the front in kind of a little pattern. And I wanted these to touch, and I wasn't quite sure like where it was going to meet in the middle and how this was all going to line up. And so that's why I had this piece right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this just a tad short. So it's shorter than all of these banners put together. And then I'm going to adhere them to the banner before I adhere them to the card. And what this is going to allow me to do is to even them all up and have them act as one piece of paper when I go to adhere it to the card front. So I don't have to worry about where my alignment is with each and every piece. And it doesn't even matter that that's going a little bit crooked. Bothers me, but nobody's going to see it. It's buried underneath. So the fact that it went diagonal does not matter, because it's all going to be hidden. And then that way, when I go to adhere it to my card, I can move this around as a whole piece and center it in my card where I want it. And even if I had been a little bit off on my edges, I could even stick this back into the trimmer and trim the edge to make it straight if for some reason it wasn't. And then I'm using the same one again. But see, this time, because I'm going to be putting the tree on the end, I'm going to flush my sentiment all the way to the other side. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but I tried to put my adhesive over the seams so that the adhesive strip also kind of holds them together. This one I'm going to use some mini dimensionals so I can spread them out a little more and not have them show. And then on this one I put a rhinestone up at the top just to be the star on my tree. And now we've done all 6 cards. So there we go. So thank you for joining me. I'll see you next Monday. Thanks. Bye.